Chelsea are one of the best teams in the Premier League when it comes to loaning out players. In fact, the Blues have the most loaned out players in the league right now, with 21 players currently out on loan, with 4 more that were on loans and have recently returned to the club in the winter transfer window. This idea has been highly requested from you guys, so in this video I'm going to be taking a look at every Chelsea loanee from this season and see how they are getting on. Let's go. Starting with all the goalkeepers, let's talk about recent birthday boy, Ted Curd. The Kingston-based youngster was born on Valentine's Day and should be feeling the love as he recently returned to the club after a rather successful stint on loan at Hampton and Richmond Borough in the National League South. The ex-United goalkeeper made 23 league appearances during his time with the Beavers and kept 9 clean sheets during his tenure. Overall, his performances were highly praised, with him only conceding 25 total goals and only being on the losing end of the scoreline 5 times. His heroics in net were well documented, including some wonderful saves against his old team in the FA Trophy. He left the club as they sat in the upper mid-table, and since his departure they have won 3 games, lost 3 games and drawn once. He was replaced by the next man on our list, in fact, Max Merrick. Max has since been loaned out to the Beavers as Ted returned and has had a pretty good start to this stint. In his first 5 games he only conceded 5 goals with 3 clean sheets, helping the Beavers to 3 wins, 1 loss and 1 draw, but has since lost a couple of games to teams higher in the division than them in their last 2 matches. Now, from Ted and Max to a Ted that's been at his max this season, let's talk about Teddy Sharman Lowe. The 21-year-old from Leicester has been another success story out on loan this season, as he's been a mainstay of the Doncaster Rovers team that currently sit 5th in the table in League 2. As the Vikings sail their way up the table and push for a promotion spot, Teddy has been at the stern of the ship, playing a total of 35 games across all competitions so far. He has conceded a rather considerable 41 goals in those games, with only 9 clean sheets, and though those numbers don't look too flattering, it's worth noting that Doncaster are a team that have a rather leaky defence, with a large portion of their games being quite open. Despite this, he has kept his place in the starting 11 the entire season, which is exactly what we want from a loan. Getting the young man the maximum amount of first team experience as possible is precisely the objective of these moves, and hopefully he can continue to grow after his first full senior season behind him. Unfortunately for some, however, full seasons can be taken away from you, and that's exactly what happened to our next player, Gabriel Slonina. After a very successful start to the season as the Barnsley #1, we initially thought that this would be a big season for him to prove himself as he and the rest of the Tykes pushed for a high finish in League 1. Barnsley were pushing for promotion the season prior, finishing 6th and making the playoffs despite a poor final 5 games, but barely didn't have enough to beat Bolton Wanderers over the 2 semi-final legs, losing 5-4 on aggregate and having to do it all again this season. In Slonina's first 11 league games for the club, he conceded just 16 goals, kept 1 clean sheet, and was only on the losing side of the scoreline 2 times. Barnsley sat in 8th place after match week 14, and looked to be pursuing that playoffs place again, until disaster struck. Slonina would suffer a finger injury, possibly one of the worst places to get injured as a goalkeeper, let's be honest, and thus would miss the next 10 fixtures. With recovery not coming anytime soon, the Illinois-born shotstopper was recalled back to Chelsea, where he currently resides now, still nursing the injury. It's sad, because the Polish-American was once seen as the next big thing here at Chelsea, but he'll have to bide his time as he gets back to full fitness. However, it's not all doom and gloom, Chelsea fans, because the next big thing has already arrived, and you can't get much bigger than the 6'7" Belgian, Mike Penders. I have been very excited to talk about this kid for a long time now, because the parallels to ex-Chelsea keeper Thibaut Courtois, who's since become an undeniably world-class goalkeeper, are numerous. Both are the same height, both are the same nationality, both are left-footed, but the main link I want to talk about is their career paths. Both Thibaut and Mike have come through the KRC Genk youth team, with the former being bought for a very low fee by Chelsea, loaned out for a few years of development at Atletico Madrid at 19, then came back to Chelsea and became a 2-time Premier League champion and an EFL Cup winner. The latter is currently on the same trajectory, with the 19-year-old Penders currently on loan with Genk after we bought him from them earlier this season. He's been doing very well for them as well. After a couple of appearances in the league at the start of the campaign, he's since been used as their cup keeper for the most part this season, playing 14 times across both the Crocky Cup, but also the Challenger Pro League, which is basically the Belgian second division where Genk's youth team play. In those 14 games, he conceded 23 goals with 3 clean sheets, making it to the semi-finals of the Crocky Cup and captaining the side 4 times in those CPL games as well. But it doesn't end there. After 20 match weeks and after good performances in those rotational games, Penders has been promoted back into the number 1 spot, playing in the last 5 games in the league for Genk, winning all 5 and keeping 2 more clean sheets, bringing his total for the season up to 6. His performances have been consistently good, with him seemingly growing in confidence every week, so we'll have to keep an eye on him throughout the latter stages of this season. Hopefully after a few more seasons of development, we might be able to field him in a Chelsea shirt, where he can not just become the next Thibaut Courtois, but the one and only Mike Penders. Moving from the big lads to a short king, next up is a man that was so destined to become a keeper, his first name is basically the word, it's Kepa Arrizabalaga. Now, I'm sure you don't need me to introduce you to Kepa, we've all seen him in a Chelsea shirt in the past, whether that be as a player or a manager, a hero or a villain. Jokes aside, I think Kepa has always been rather overlooked. He was very good for us in his first season, and since then it hasn't really worked out for one reason or another, and in recent years he's been getting a few loans to help get his career back on track. It didn't quite go right for him at Real Madrid, but nowadays he's the Bournemouth number 1, and I have to admit he's been doing pretty well. He's played 19 times in all competitions and has conceded just 22 goals, with 6 clean sheets to his name. He's had quite a few outstanding performances in that time too, notably the 5-0 win versus Forest, the 3-0 win over Manchester United, and the 0-0 draw versus Crystal Palace. Also, before this match week he had the highest save percentage in the entire league for a goalkeeper. Kepa has gone from liability to reliable with ability, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Cherries decide to make his loan signing permanent in the summer, with the Spaniard finally finding himself a new home in the sunny south. From AFC-B to RCSA, it's time to talk about our final keeper, and the first of a few mentions of our sister club RC Strasbourg, let's talk about Georgi Petrovic. It feels slightly odd to be talking about a player that was our number 1 last season in a "where are they now" style video, but nonetheless Petrovic has been out on loan so far this season and has absolutely smashed it out there. He's played 18 games so far for Le Racing, starting and playing the full 90 ever since he came to the club. In that time, he's amassed 4 clean sheets and conceded 26 goals, as Strasbourg have won 7, lost 6 and drawn 5. They sit in 9th place, just 3 points behind the Europa Conference League spots, and Georgi has been one of the highlights of the team so far this campaign. But the thing I want to really highlight here for the Serbian is just how much he has improved this season under Liam Rosenior, especially considering the style of football he has implemented at the French outfit. Firstly, let's take a look at Petrovic's stats from the 2023-24 season under Chelsea. These are the per 90 metrics for him in comparison to all goalkeepers in the Premier League that season, and as you can see, they're not very good. But now, if we compare that to this season at Strasbourg, the difference is night and day. He still has areas to improve on, but the interesting thing here is that his best metrics are those of a sweeper keeper in a possession-based system. A high percentage of defensive actions outside the penalty area, a massive amount of touches, and very rare launching of the ball. In a system like Enzo Maresca's, where we rarely play the ball long unless we need to, he'll suit this style perfectly. The other stat that's quite high here is the top one, the post-shot expected goals minus goals against. This is a pretty complicated stat, but to simplify it, it's basically how many goals per game he's expected to concede based on a number of factors, versus how many he actually does concede. A positive number here suggests that he is conceding less than expected, and usually signifies either better luck or a higher than average ability to stop shots, which is of course good. Another metric that's interesting here for me is that his ability to stop crosses has drastically improved, which is something that we were a bit unconvinced of when he was playing for Chelsea. All this is to say Petrovic has massively improved as a goalkeeper in his time on loan, which is exactly what we are after. He should be able to come back to his parent club in the summer and push for the number 1 spot if the rest of his loan goes as well as it has so far. If you're enjoying the video so far, please leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. This helps the YouTube algorithm push my content out to more people, but also allows you to get more relevant content that you like on your homepage. These types of videos take a very long time to put together, from research to scripting to editing, so I'd appreciate the support massively. A large majority of my viewership comes from people that aren't subscribed too, or don't even know that they aren't subscribed, so make sure you are if not, and let's get back to the video. Moving on to the defenders out on loan, let's first take a look at a couple of players that unfortunately will likely be leaving in the summer, Dylan Williams and Bashir Humphreys. Let's start with the former. The 21-year-old left-back is currently out on loan at Burton Albion in League 1, but his loan has an obligation to buy if certain conditions are met, which they most likely will be. The Telford-born boy has already played 24 games for the Brewers, racking up a goal and 4 assists across all competitions. Similarly, Bashir Humphreys is also someone whose loan move looks likely to be made permanent, as the same clause is in his current contract too. The England under-21 international has been out on loan at Championship side Burnley this season and has been a large part of their success. Despite being a natural centre-back, Bash has played in a variety of positions across the backline for the Clarets this season, but oddly his main position has been as a left-back, where he has shone. He has played 19 games for them this season so far and has only lost one game, contributing to 19 clean sheets, as Burnley have only conceded 9 goals all season, or 6 whilst he's been on the pitch. Chelsea's record of only conceding 15 goals in an English League season could possibly be up for grabs if they can manage to not concede more than 6 goals in their next 14 games, albeit in a much weaker league than the Blues did it in. It's also worth noting that Humphreys has also contributed offensively for them as well, bagging 2 assists so far and scoring last time out versus Hull City. And though these two won't be coming back to Chelsea, they should be included for completion's sake. The same should be said for Zach Sturge and Axel Disasi, who are currently on loan at fellow London club Millwall and Aston Villa respectively, but as of recording are yet to make an appearance for them. Likewise, Ben Chilwell has just gone out on loan to Crystal Palace but has only played 1 game so far. Renato Vega is currently on loan at Juventus and has already put in a few decent performances for the old lady, starting as a left centre-back twice in the league and once in the Champions League, and being on the winning side in all 3 games. Caleb Wiley is another player that has yet to make an appearance for his current loan club, Watford, but was on loan at our sister club RC Strasbourg for the first half of the season. Unfortunately, he didn't get much game time, only amassing 6 appearances in Ligue 1, with a measly total of 267 minutes out of a possible 540. But the majority of the time his exclusion was for injury. The American left-back suffered both knee issues, which kept him out from matchday 4 to 9, missing 6 games, and a subsequent shoulder injury just 3 weeks later kept him out for the remainder of his time spent there. He's since returned to Chelsea and has been sent out on loan to Championship club Watford, as mentioned before, so hopefully he can get some considerable minutes as he gets his first taste of English football. Another player who might be getting that taste sooner rather than later is the Argentinian centre-half Aaron Anselmino. The young South American was originally out on loan this season back at the club that Chelsea purchased him from, Boca Juniors. Whilst there, he played 12 games in all competitions, winning 6, losing 5 and drawing once, with 3 assists in the league and 1 crucial goal in the quarter-finals of the Copa Argentina to send Boca to the semis after penalties. He would then miss the next 5 games because of a reoccurring hamstring injury before returning to Chelsea and training with the first team. Despite rumours of another loan out to France, he stayed with us through this winter transfer window and has recently made his first matchday squad as he was listed on the bench for the FA Cup game versus Brighton. Hopefully, as he adjusts to Enzo Maresca's football, he can start making some rotational appearances for the Blues. A player that didn't have to adjust to Maresca ball, however, was Trevor Chalobah. The England international was quite famously ousted from the Chelsea first team and after 6 weeks of the campaign, finally made his return to the pitch as Crystal Palace's brand new centre-half. After a couple of narrow defeats to 2 of the best teams in the league, 1-0 losses to Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, he started to consistently put in decent performances, only losing 2 more matches in the rest of his games for the Eagles as Palace gained a lot of points to help them climb up the table. He also appeared for them twice in the EFL Cup. During that short time, he scored 3 goals, putting him in the 98th percentile for non-penalty goals per 90 in comparison to other Prem centre-backs, and seemed to be on his way to finding his feet at his new home. However, not soon after the winter transfer window opened, the 25-year-old was already back at Stamford Bridge as he was recalled from his loan due to injuries creating gaps in the centre-back department, being miraculously thrown right in to start versus Wolves in our 2-1 victory over them a few weeks ago, getting an assist in the process. Since then, the Chelsea Academy graduate has played 2 more full games, 1 against Man City and 1 versus Brighton in the FA Cup last week, with a small solo minute cameo at the end of the West Ham victory as well. Hopefully Chalobah can continue where he left off at Palace and bring some of that good form to Chelsea for the rest of the season. From a former Eagle to a current Blade, let's talk about our final defender out on loan this season, last season's Academy success story, Alfie Gilchrist. A mainstay of the Mono CFC bingo card last season with his patented passion sessions, Alfie has been bringing that same fire to Bramall Lane as he and Sheffield United push for promotion back into the Premier League. He's played as a right back for the majority of the season, racking up 2 assists as he's played in all but 2 games that he's been available for selection, with his last outing being a shock 3-0 defeat to Hull City. Since then, he has yet to play for the South Yorkshire side, as he's been dropped out of the squad due to loan player limitations in the starting 11. He's been displaced by new loan signing Harry Clark, and in my opinion has been treated pretty poorly by manager Chris Wilder, as he has not really done anything wrong. It's a shame that he wasn't recalled or sent back to Chelsea, as this exclusion will likely harm his development, and he's the perfect type of right back slash centre back hybrid that would suit our right hand side under Maresca with the inverting left back, at least in rotational games. Hopefully he can prove himself a bit more in training and can force his way back into the team to continue to improve himself before he does return to the club in the summer. Getting into the spicier side of the pitch now, we are moving on to the midfielders out on loan, which there are 5 of. Let's start with Leo Castledine. The Chelsea Academy product is currently on loan at Shrewsbury in League One, where he has cemented himself as a starter in attacking midfield. He's played 23 times for them this season, with 18 of those appearances being from the start, and has 2 goals to his name so far. Obviously that doesn't sound incredibly inspiring, but Shrewsbury, with all due respect, are one of the worst teams in the division, currently sitting at the top of the relegation zone after just 7 wins, 6 draws and 17 losses. Despite this, there are promising signs for the young man, as he's been good enough to consistently get game time, with his performances against Crawley, Mansfield, Charlton and Leyton Orient being particularly standout games for him. Hopefully his next loan is more successful, perhaps at a bigger or better club. Now from a Leo to a Libra, we move on to the October-born midfielder Alex Matos. The young English Ghanaian has recently moved to Oxford United in this latest transfer window and has already racked up 7 appearances in the Championship, mainly operating as a substitute. However, his last 2 games have been from the start as an attacking midfielder, so it seems as if more faith is being put into him as he progresses with this stint. So far, Oxford have won or drawn every game he's participated in, except against tough opposition in Burnley that we spoke about earlier, which shows a decent upturn in form as they've been around low to mid-table for the majority of the season. I'm sure Alex's contributions in yellow and blue have been at least some of the reason for that. But it's the yellow and black that we'll be talking about briefly next, as I have to mention Carney Chukwuemeka, who's recently gone out on loan to Borussia Dortmund. Unfortunately, he is yet to make an extended appearance for them, but he came off the bench for a few minutes in the 3-0 thrashing of Sporting in the Champions League a few days ago. Hopefully we get to see him play a bigger part sooner rather than later, and he can be on the pitch for longer. Speaking of long things, pause. The next man we have to mention is another with a rather long Nigerian last name. It's the big Frenchman, Leslie Ugochukwu. Now, Leslie has been out on loan at bottom place Southampton since the beginning of the campaign, but despite their woes in the league, I think his spell has been largely viewed as a positive one. He's been a bit of a shining light in that team, putting in good defensive performances when he's been used, which has been few and far between. Mainly used as a substitute in that defensive midfield role, Leslie has appeared 19 times for the Saints with a total of 1,111 minutes in all competitions, amassing 2 assists from that deeper position, and slowly starting to get more faith put into him to start matches. He started 4 out of his last 5 games, including against big opposition like Man United and Newcastle, and in the most recent victory over Ipswich. And if you look at his per 90 stats in comparison to all other midfielders in the Premier League, you can see where he's been excelling. He's first and foremost an incredibly active and successful tackler, with almost 4 tackles per 90. But there's other redeeming stats here too, like his decent aerial win rate, high blocks per 90, and successful take-ons. Now, obviously these need to be taken with a pinch of salt because of his low minutes, but it's clear that there is substance here, and given a slightly better platform to perform on, he could excel as a classic hard to get past number 6, which is precisely the profile of player that Chelsea are lacking right now. Honestly, it was slightly surprising to not see him recalled in January, as we had our own midfield woes and he could have solved them, but we decided to allow him to keep building momentum on the south coast and return to Chelsea as a more ready star. And speaking of stars, it's time to talk about the big one, the lone player at the moment, and the reason many of you likely clicked on this video. I've saved the best till last here, it's Andre Santos. Santos has had an incredibly meteoric rise in football so far this season. After a difficult start to last season with a dodgy loan to Nottingham Forest, we sent him to our sister club RC Strasbourg to see if that could help. He settled in well and put in decent performances, so when the time came for us to find him a home at the start of this season, it was a no-brainer. The Brazilian returned to Strasbourg on loan once again, this time from the start of the season, and has not looked back ever since. This isn't just a case of a lone player doing decently well either, this is a case of a young prodigy becoming unarguably one of the best midfielders in the entire French First Division, whilst playing for a team that, before his arrival in that first spell, were barely holding on to avoid relegation. He's started all but 1 game since he joined, playing 22 times in all competitions and bagging 8 goals and 3 assists from defensive midfield, mind you, and has already captained the side 3 times. He has made a name for himself with his tenacious tackling, seemingly unlimited unlimited energy, good distribution, and of course this sky-high goal output for a defensive midfielder. If we take a look at his match ratings over the course of the season, there has been only one match where he's had a rating lower than 7.1. That was the game against Marseille, where he got an assist and they drew. One of his biggest strengths is just that. His consistency is genuinely unreal for a young player. He's practically never had a bad game this season and has made it into the team of the week 2 times. His heat map for this season is absolutely insane too, rivaling that of Moises Caicedo, and we know how much work he puts in every week. In my eyes, he's a shoo-in for the team of the season and probably has a case to argue about being the young player of the season too. Chelsea will have an absolute gem on their hands come this summer, and I'm sure many clubs will flock to see if they can nab his signature. Unfortunately for them, according to reports, Andre is highly rated by Chelsea's board and should be a big part of our Premier League squad next season. We've made it all the way to the forwards now, so let's take a look at the final 5 players out on loan before a bonus look at a few other ones to watch. First up, let's talk about Chelsea under-21 star Jimmy J Morgan. The young man from Poole started this season as our under-21 centre forward, racking up an impressive 8 goals and 2 assists in 11 appearances. Seeing his fantastic progress, he was allowed to leave on loan to get some senior first team experience and was approached by League 2 side Gillingham, where he shall remain for the rest of the season. So far in a Gill shirt, he's not had the immediate impact that you'd like to see, only amassing 157 minutes in the space of 4 appearances, but hopefully with time he'll be allowed to shine as Gillingham try to escape the ever-open clutches of the relegation zone. Another team that has been trying to do that same thing recently with a string of wins under their new head coach David Moyes is Everton, where our next man currently resides. Of course, I'm talking about Albanian striker Armando Broja, who instead of having a sweet time as a toffee, has been left feeling bitter like coffee. We all had hoped that this loan move would be a way for the young man from Slough to revitalise his career after injury woes in seasons prior, but alas, old habits die hard, and the big centre forward has been back on the treatment table for the majority of this season. He's managed to get on the pitch just 7 times for Everton, with one of those appearances being in the FA Cup, and another being for their reserves team. He missed the start of the campaign with a nasty Achilles injury, and despite returning from that and having a run of 5 games where he had to make do with being a part-time player against teams such as Arsenal, City, Forest and Bournemouth, all very tough teams, in only his second start of the campaign versus the Cherries he suffered yet another setback, this time injuring his ankle and having to be withdrawn, and has yet to make an appearance since. Unfortunately, he's not the only one that has had injury woes, as another one of our forwards that was out on loan is up next, David Datro Fofana. The Ivorian had a good end to the 2023-24 season on loan at Burnley, and his next loan move to Göztepe in Turkey looked to be a good opportunity for him to get regular minutes. And though he was able to get a decent chunk, 282 to be exact, with him scoring twice off of the bench, he never really looked like he was going to be starting regularly, and adding to this, he would soon get injured as well. A bad knee injury kept him out for 6 games, and thus he was recalled back to Chelsea in order to rehab and recover. He's expected to be out until the summer, with his season sadly being cut short. Short is what this next section is going to be, as well as I have to briefly mention Joao Felix, who's recently gone out on loan to AC Milan. He's made 3 appearances already, once in a 1-0 loss against Feyenoord in the Champions League, once as a second striker in the Serie A in a 2-0 win over Empoli, and once in the Italy Cup, where he scored off the bench versus AS Roma. Hopefully he can finish the campaign strong with the Rossoneri and come back to Chelsea with a renewed quality. One man I don't hope to see back in a Chelsea shirt, however, is Raheem Sterling, who's currently on loan at Arsenal. He's made 18 appearances for the North London club but has had extremely limited minutes, only being on the pitch for 753 in total, mainly being used as a late substitute or just an extra name on the bench. Despite this, he has managed to bag himself a few goal contributions, a goal and assist in the AFL Cup versus Bolton Wanderers, and an assist versus Nottingham Forest in the league. Overall, this move has been rather middling, and I'd expect the once 2014 Golden Boy to make a more permanent move this summer to another club. Now, as a bonus, I'm going to touch on 2 players that aren't technically on loan, but will be arriving next summer on pre-agreements and are basically on loan watch. The first is a young man that might be coming to Cobham earlier than expected if reports are to be believed, as it's rumoured that the Ecuadorian star boy, Kendry Paez, could be heading to England sooner rather than later to acclimatise to his surroundings. The 17-year-old sensation currently plays for Independiente del Valle in his native Ecuador, where he's currently on his off-season. Matchday 1 of 30 starts tonight as of recording this video, where he and his teammates will take on Libertad. We'll have to assess his last season as this one hasn't started yet. The attacker has competed in numerous competitions already, from the Copa Ecuador, the Copa Sudamericana, the Copa Libertadores, as well as the Tres Etapas, or 3 stages, of the Ecuadorian Liga Pro, the Serie Primera Etapa, Segunda Etapa y Tercera Etapa. As well as this, he's already made his senior debut for his national team, competing in not only international friendlies, but the Copa America alongside Chelsea teammate Moises Caicedo. Naturally a right winger, the South American has been utilised more as a 10 in recent times, racking up a total of 10 goals and 5 assists in the space of 50 games across all of those previously mentioned competitions, as a mixture of a starter and a substitute, making it to the quarterfinals of the Copa America, the final of the Copa Ecuador, and helping his club finish first in the first stage of the league campaign, second in the second stage, before unfortunately losing across the 2 legs of the third and final stage to LDU Quito. And though 15 goal contributions in 50 games doesn't sound too astonishing, you have to remember that this is a child playing against fully grown men's professionals every week and looking consistently good whilst doing so. Similarly to Andre Santos that we spoke about earlier, Paez routinely puts up good match ratings even when he's not scoring or assisting, acting as a playmaker facilitating play before the final ball, similar to a certain Belgian that used to play for us. Most recently he's been involved in some under-20s international football in the off-season, where he scored 1 goal in 4 games as Ecuador have taken on Brazil, Argentina, Colombia and Bolivia. This is a very exciting prospect, and personally I cannot wait to see him training with us when he arrives in the summer. Luckily for us, he's not the only hidden gem from South America that we've unearthed, as the final player we'll be talking about today is of course Estevão Willian. If you haven't heard of that name, then you have likely been living under a rock for the last year, as this brilliant Brazilian has been touted as the second coming of Neymar, and for good reason. Scoring 17 goals and bagging 10 assists in the space of his last 51 games across 2024 to now, this whimsical winger has been making waves for Palmeiras and Brazil in a number of competitions. The 17-year-old already has a touted market value of 50 million euros, which is indicative of the pure quality that he possesses. If we take a look at his per 90 statistics in comparison to his positional peers across the last 365 days, it's genuinely astonishing. This is not just a talented youngster, this is a true phenom of the game, and though this is against lesser opposition and should be taken with a pinch of salt, you can only beat what's in front of you, and that is exactly what he has been doing. Like I spoke about with Paez and Santos, his consistency is one of his better qualities too. He rarely, if ever, has a mediocre game, and has been the best player on the pitch pretty much every time I have stayed up until the early hours of the morning to watch him. His ability to beat his man, close control and silky dribbling combined with good output is exactly the type of profile Enzo Maresca's football likes to utilise. I mention this in almost every tactical breakdown that I do. Our current system relies on making 1v1s out wide, winning those 1v1s and using the newfound space to create chances and score goals. Estevão is fully capable of winning his 1v1s, fully capable of providing for his teammates, and fully capable of putting the ball in the net, something that our current crop of wingers have struggled with at times. We have not had a winger that can truly change games with a bit of magic ever since Hazard left in 2019, and though he may take a little bit of time to adjust to English football, you can't deny the fact that we may finally have another game changer incoming. Winning the Brazilian Golden Ball and Breakthrough Player in 2024 was just the beginning for him, it seems, as he looks to immediately slot into the Chelsea first team when he arrives in the summer. The wait until then will be rather agonising admittedly, but if you need something else to watch whilst you do, perhaps check out this video on screen in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on you Blues!